Okay, so what you're about to hear is one of the most chilling true crime stories I have ever come across. Seriously. It's a case that's so disturbing, the details are, well, they're almost impossible to believe, even all these years later.
It really makes you wonder, right? How does a relationship, something that starts with hope, just spiral into an act of such unbelievable violence? The story of Catherine Knight, it gives us an answer, but it's an answer that's just so hard to wrap your head around. Let's dive in and see how it all went so terribly wrong.
So, this all revolves around two people, Catherine Knight and her partner John Price. Their relationship would end in a way that, honestly, it's the stuff of nightmares. At first, though, you would have never guessed it. Their life together seemed, well, pretty normal. You know, they'd go out for drinks with friends, hang out at the local pub. From the outside, you'd think, hey, there's just another happy couple. John was this stable, hardworking guy. He had a good job, and his two older kids lived with him. And by all accounts, his children really liked Catherine. For a little while, everything was calm.
But then, the first real crack in that calm surface appeared. It happened when Catherine brought up the topic of marriage. She suggested they should tie the knot, but John wasn't on the same page.
He told her no. He just didn't think marriage was a good idea for them. And that single word, no, that was the trigger. Friends said the change in Catherine was like immediate. She became verbally abusive, manipulative, and pretty soon, the violence started.
But here's the thing about Catherine's anger. It wasn't normal. She didn't just get mad and argue. No, she sought revenge with this terrifying, calculated sense of vengeance. In fact, people who knew her well used one specific word to describe this side of her: cutthroat. And she was about to prove just how cutthroat she could be.
So get this, John brought home a first aid kit from his job, something worth maybe $20. Catherine secretly filmed him with it, sent that video straight to his boss, and accused him of being a thief. And for a $20 first aid kit, John lost his job. That was her kind of justice.
John was, of course, furious. He kicked her out of the house, and they were actually apart for 3 whole months. But Catherine had a history of violence with other partners, and somehow she managed to talk her way back into his life. She just weaseled her way back in.
But after she came back, the fighting just got so much worse. John was becoming genuinely terrified of her. And he started doing something. He started trying to leave a trail of breadcrumbs, these little warnings for anyone who would listen.
He started creating a record. Every single time they fought, he'd call up a friend and tell them exactly what happened, trying to create witnesses. He even called the police, desperate to get her out of his house, but they told him he needed a court order. So, you know what? He went and got one. But a piece of paper, that meant absolutely nothing to Catherine. She completely ignored the restraining order. The abuse just kept going. The very system that was supposed to protect him had totally failed.
Realizing he was running out of options, John took one final desperate step. He actually sat down with his boss and his coworkers and gave them this chilling warning. He said, "If I ever go missing, it was Catherine."
And then, the night came when it all ended. John got home from work, went through his usual routine, and was in bed by around 11 p.m.
Catherine got home later. She made dinner, watched some TV, took a shower, just a normal night. Then she went into the bedroom, woke John up, and they had one last argument. Eventually, he fell back asleep. But Catherine didn't sleep. She stayed awake, waiting.
Right there, in the nightstand next to the bed they both shared, Catherine kept a butcher's knife. And in the dead of night, while John was sleeping, she quietly opened that drawer and took it out.
And then she attacked him 37 times. She stabbed him 37 times. The evidence showed there was a desperate struggle. He fought for his life, trying to get out of that bedroom, but his injuries were just too severe.
The next morning, John didn't show up for his shift, and his coworkers, remembering that bone-chilling warning he gave them, did exactly what he had asked them to do. They called the police.
When the police got there, nobody answered the door. They peeked through the mail slot and saw something really odd. What looked like a big, heavy curtain hanging there blocking the view. When they got no response, they had to force their way in. Inside, the scene was just chaos. Blood was everywhere. As one of the officers moved deeper into the house, he went up to that weird object hanging in the doorway, and he just used his arm to push it aside.
He looked down at his arm, and his gloved hand and his forearm were just coated in this thick, warm liquid.
He looked back up at the thing he'd just touched, trying to figure out what on earth it was.
And that's when this dawning horror just hit him. It wasn't a blanket. It wasn't a curtain. It wasn't fabric at all. At that exact same moment, his eyes darted down to the floor, and he saw a body. A torso. With no head.
The thing hanging from the doorframe, it was John Price's skin. She had removed it in one single piece. A final, unthinkable act. It just leaves you with this awful question that hangs over every story like this. How do you possibly see the signs before it's too late?